H2K Infosys provides world-class online IT training, staffing, and software testing solutions to customers worldwide. H2K Infosys supports 100% job-oriented training, hands-on project work, cloud test lab, resume preparation and review, mock interviews, robust syllabus. One-time pay, lifetime access to live classes and videos. H2K Infosys has won the trust of thousands of students worldwide. For free demo class, visit h2kinfosys.com.
So the outer for loop is for the row defined by the index number r, integer type starts with 0, and this is str.length, and then this is the inner for loop which is for the column, and this should be str of 0.length, and then you define str c and c, r and c. Okay, now let us run this particular. So what I will do is that I will comment all these codes from above until this line, and execute this particular code right now. Okay, see if I run it, let us check the result that is happening. It is telling you the exception is called as null pointer exception. Okay, null pointer exception does not give any message. It's a null pointer, void, empty pointer exception, and it's an unchecked exception. You can see that, and line number 56 has the problem. Just click on that, you'll see this particular line number has a problem. Now why this particular line number has a problem, understand it. Now here I've defined the array, a two-dimensional array. str is a two-dimensional array of string type. Have I defined the row size and column size which you generally define? You have not defined it. So what I have done is that if I haven't defined it also, that's fine, but before you define the data for the first row and the data for the second column, at least initialize the object of this particular string. So str is should be equal to, for example, new string. Now here you can define it before defining the data for the first row and second row. And the coder by mistake has not written this line, or by carelessness is not written that line, and it has two rows and two columns. If you define this line, okay, and then you execute this particular class file, the null pointer exception will go, and you get the result for Peter, Charles, John, McEnroe, which are nothing but the data in the first row and second row. But since because of the carelessness of that particular coder, the coder has just forgotten to create the object of the string class with the new keyword, and forgot to define the array size, and definitely directly defining the data for the first row and second row, and trying to execute this particular code using the for loop. So obviously at this point of time I have commented it. It is going to throw you a null pointer exception, and that is what is being thrown out as a null pointer exception. So this can be also handled with the with the try catch block. Okay, at this point of time what you can do is that, let's say you do not have this line, hypothetically understand, so that you can put the full this part under the try block until here. The for loop is ending out here. This is the end of the try block, and this is followed by the catch. Then you have the catch block out here. You have to pass on the exceptions object. Then you want to get the message of it. You can get the message by using sysout e dot get message. I don't want to get the print status, that's fine. But this is how you have to handle it then. And then I can uncomment the other lines of the codes and get the complete result of the whole class file. Save it and run it. So this is showing this null is coming for the get message. So I can write down the message of the exception is concatenated with the e.get message. So if I again run it, I will get message and will be able to see it and understand it. You see, the message is null pointer. Okay, so these are the types of unchecked exception that I wanted to show you. And then going forward, we have the checked exception, which is used by the thread.sleep method. So we'll see a checked exception, and we'll see that before we go forward. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a new class file, and called checked exception, and this is a thread underscore sleep method. Call the main. Now, until unless what we have seen is that the exceptions that were shown until now were your unchecked exceptions, and the compiler of your JVM understand that these are the names of the exceptions based on the type of exception that is being thrown out. And the type of exception is thrown out in the console of Eclipse, and it knows that this is the type of exception based on the codes that you have written. So the JVM, the compiler present in JVM already knows that. Similarly, a checked exception is something which is also known by the compiler. That is what is the kind of checked exception it is. Okay, so the kind of checked exception is also known by the compiler of JVM. And the typical example is that let's say I have integer a which is equal to 20, and I use a sysout, put the value of a, and then I have integer b which is equal to, let's say, 30, and again I have a sysout b, and if I run this particular class file, I'll get the result of a and b. That's fine, 20 and 30. Okay, but let's say I want to create a delay between these two results. That means I want to create a delay of 5 seconds. So first it will print out 20, then wait for 5 seconds, and then it will print out 30. So for creating a delay, what we use is basically a sleep method, and the sleep method is a static method of the thread class. Thread is an inbuilt class of Java. It's a static class, and that is why it can be directly called in the static main method. So thread is an inbuilt class of Java which has a method called sleep. Okay, and you can define the number of seconds that the thread needs to be sleeping. So let's say I define 10,000 milliseconds with L, that is, it's a long integer. 10,000 milliseconds is equal to 10 seconds. So that means this will be printed out, that is 20 will be printed out. Then the compiler will wait for 10 seconds, and then the value of B will be printed out. Okay, let's say the execution is very fast and you want to see the results slowly, then you create this kind of thread.sleep method which will make this main is a thread by itself, so it will basically make the thread to sleep, and it's a static sleep. It will wait for 10 seconds out because that is what is the time defined, and after 10 seconds it is going to print out the value of B. But the moment you use the sleep method of the thread class, there is a red underline, you can see that. And if you hover your mouse over the cross sign, you see that unhandled exception type. And what is the type of exception? Interrupted exception. That means the compiler is catching the exceptions before the class file is running. So if the compiler is able to catch an exception before the class file is run, it is called a caught exception or a checked exception. And this exception has to be handled. How do you handle it? Using the try catch block. So how do I do that? I use a try, put this particular line within the try block. The moment you do that, your red underline goes from this line number 11, and then try is always followed by a catch, and then you have the exception object passed out in the argument of the catch block as E, and then you can get uh, the stack trace e dot print stack trace of the exception, and you can also use the sysO statement with the e dot print message or get message, sorry. The moment you do that, this exception that was coming in line number 9, it was coming with a red underline, if you remember it. Okay, and this exception is gone. And what are the exception coming out? Interrupted exception. Okay, and the exception is handled with using the try catch block. So what is going to happen? Compiler will print a value of 20. Then it will encounter a try. It will become attentive. You'll see there's an exception coming on, and the compiler of Jim understands, and that is why it throwed out interrupted exceptions when you hovered your mouse over the cross red sign, if you remember it. Okay, it handles the exception, moves the control to the catch block, executes the body part of the catch block where it basically prints out the stack trace of the origin of the exception, prints out the message of the exception, and then it also prints out the message of the variable B. So there is will be, or rather will be, a time delay between this and this, a time delay of 10 seconds. So let us see that. Save the class file and run it. 20, waiting for 10 seconds, and then 30 is printed out. And the execution stops because the red button turns to gray. Now, if you see out here, when you're using a try catch block for the thread.sleep method to handle the caught exception, and this is called the interrupted exception, there is a catch body e.print stack trace on print ln, which is printing out the get message, that is the message of the exception. Does the console show you the result for print stack trace or get message method? It does not show. This is an observation again. When you're using the try catch block for a unchecked exception, you're getting the body part of catch executed in the console of Eclipse, where it shows out the print stack trace and the get message method body method result. But when you're using the try catch block in a checked exceptions using the thread.sleep method, and the exception is your interrupted exceptions, do I get the message? Because this get message should give me the message of the exception, and print stack trace should tell me what is the kind of exception it is. It is an interrupted exception, I know that. But is it throwing out in the console of Eclipse? That means there's this general observation that if you are giving the print stack trace method or the get message method of the exception class in the catch body to handle a thread.sleep code, the result for print stack trace and get message will not be thrown out. And this observation should be remembered. Okay. This is an example of your checked exception using the thread.sleep and how we are handling by try catch. Going back to the slide, the next thing will be example to handle checked unchecked exception using the try catch block. Now we have seen that already. We have seen that how do we handle unchecked exceptions using the try catch block, and where is it present in this particular types of unchecked exceptions. So there are three unchecked exceptions out here. One is arithmetic, and one is your null pointer, and the other one was your array index out of bound, and these were actually handled by using the try catch block. Okay, so that's already being covered. The next thing that I am going to show you is that how do you handle checked exception using the throw clause. Now we have seen that we have handled checked exceptions using the try catch block, and that is what is shown in your thread.sleep. The thread.sleep is part of your checked exception, and how it is handling, it is handled by try catch block. And then I'll try to handle the thread.sleep using the throws clause. Throws clause is another way to handle your exceptions, like your try catch block. So I'll create a class file inside this package, uh, throws clause, checked exception. Click on the main method and finish. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to catch the codes from here and copy it in this particular part, and I'm going to remove the try catch block. So there is a thread dot sleep. Okay, and so you've handled last time this thread dot sleep is a checked exception using the try catch block. Now how do you handle with the throws clause? So if you hover your mouse, you'll get both the options to handle this exception. One is with your try catch block, which you have already done that, and now we'll add the throws clause to handle it. So you can, as I have told you, you can handle a checked or an unchecked exception by using the try catch block and the throws clause. Now, in the last program, I showed you how to handle a checked exception coming out from the thread.sleep, and the exception is your interrupted exception. Now, we have seen handling of it with the try catch block. Now let's see how do you handle this with the throws clause. So just hover your mouse over this red underline and click on this add throws. You will see that the throws clause always comes with the method name in the same line, and this is the interrupted exception. This is how it is handling it. Okay, this is how it is handling it. But if you look at the difference between try catch block and throws, the try catch block gives you an options to get the message of the exceptions or get the print stack trace. Okay, but throw clause you cannot get any message of the exception or the print stack trace. But as far as try catch block is concerned, when it is used with a checked exception, anyway the print stack trace and the get message does not work. We have seen that. But when you're using the print stack trace and get message methods of the catch block with your unchecked exceptions, you're getting the result of the get message method and the print stack trace in the console of Eclipse. As far as throws clause is concerned, when you handle this checked exception coming out from thread.sleep using the throws clause, you will see the type of exception it is, but you will not have any procedure to get the message of the exception or the getting the print stack trace of that. Okay, let's go back to the slide. So one thing is more remaining before I say thank you to you guys is that I also want to show you how to handle unchecked exception using the throws clause. Now you see then we have handled unchecked exception with the try catch block. How to handle with throws clause? Let us look at that also before I say thank you to you guys. So what I will do is that I will create an exception class file called as unchecked exception using the uh, try catch block. Call the main method. I already have certain example of your arithmetic exceptions. I'm handle out here with your copy this and put it out here. I'm going to remove the try block because I want to handle it with your now the throws clause. Now we have seen how do we handle with the try catch block. That's fine. Now how do you handle with the throws clause? So I want to handle with the throws clause the unchecked exception. Is that possible or not? Let us see that. So I know that this exception, if I run this, I get the result as a arithmetic exception. I know that. Okay, it's an unchecked exception because the result of the exception, the type of exception is thrown after you run the class file. So how do you handle with the throws clause? So yeah, I have told you that throws clause are always used with the main method line. So you can just write down throws arithmetic exception. You can write like this. Arithmetic spelling is wrong. The moment you put this, let us see if it is able to handle it or not. So how do you, if it is able to handle it, I will get the result of this variable g, which is equal to 20, and sys out g out here. If it is able to handle this line with the throws clause, I should get the result of g. So run it. You see out here, it is telling us that the exception is arithmetic exception, and this is the message, and it is present in line number 7. But I don't get the value of g. So that means throws clause cannot be used to handle unchecked exceptions. Simple understanding. Because if it would have handled the exception, okay, then I would have got the result of g out here. And arithmetic exceptions or null pointer exceptions or your array index out of bound exception are runtime exceptions or unchecked or uncaught exceptions. So if you are handling with throws clause, you will see that you will not get the result of the codes written down below the code in which the exception is there. But if I remove this, let's say I comment this. I'll do a block comment of this just to show. Okay, if I handle this with a try catch block, try and handle it with a catch, and I pass on the exception e out here, I'll obviously get the message of it if I want to. So e dot get message, and I can also get the print stack trace. That is e dot print stack trace. Okay, so I'll get this. What is happening is that the try block will handle it, the exception in line number 8, and then move the compiler to the catch block, and the compiler will execute the body of the catch block, and then it will execute the result of this also. See, if I run the class file after saving it, you see I'm getting the result. This is divide by 0 coming for the get message method, print stack trace, this is what is coming. I'm also getting the result of g, that is 20 out here. So that means what I'm trying to say is that unchecked exceptions cannot be handled by the throws clause, but it can be handled by the try catch block. So let us comment this try catch block and uncomment this part to give you the result. So that's about it. That's more than enough for this particular session. Thanks very much and hope to see you